Hey world, and welcome to the 3rd of Advent. Can you believe that it's already Christmas next week? It's so... where did time go? It's so weird. But yeah, welcome to the 3rd of Advent. I hope you're having a wonderful time and a wonderful Christmas / holiday / winter time, whatever it is you're celebrating or not celebrating. I hope you have snow. Snow is just wonderful. And yeah, let's just get started with the story right away. As per usual, links to the written story on my website and the playlist to the last Christmas stories will be in the description down below. So let's just get started. December 11th. I was the first person to enter the classroom, Chris having called me early this morning to tell me that I would have to go to school alone since some sort of epidemic had befallen the entire family. So I spread out my books and notepad on the table in front of me and started to doodle on the edges of today's text. I knew I wasn't actually any good at drawing, but the repetitive notion of guiding the pen along the paper brought my mind to rest, losing my tangled thoughts within the lines. By the time the first page was covered in little trolls and elves and my fingers came to a pause, another person had made their way into the room, surprising me when the previously unnoticed figure appeared in the corner of my eye. She seemed absent, her eyes focused on the distance, her mind probably lost in tangled thoughts as well. There was a strange beauty in her stillness, but it hurt me to think that her brain might be as crowded as mine. I didn't want her to suffer such profusion. The room was still empty apart from the two of us, and after watching her disappear in her thoughts for way too long, something inside of me snapped, and before I knew it I was on my feet with the certainty that I could finally talk to her. And then the door opened, and the sudden determination within me faded. December 12th. What would have happened if Till hadn't entered the room in that moment? Would I really have talked to Leia, or would I have stopped halfway over to her and continued to admire her from afar, only then with the actual distance of my failure? And if I had reached her, what would I have said? Since my body had overthrown my brain so suddenly, I hadn't had time to consider my actions, to create a plan or at least formulate a first sentence. I could have very well ended up standing at her desk without any words, her staring at me in confusion, waiting for some sort of reason for my presence. I might have made up a lie about homework or needing a pen, but that would have not only shown my desperation quite strongly, but would have also resulted in the most irrelevant conversation ever. Still, it would have been progress. But even if I would have miraculously managed to do all of that, to seem more or less normal, how would she have reacted? She had been deep in her thoughts after all. Would she have been annoyed at the interruption, or shamed at being caught with her mind so far away? Or glad for the distraction? I guess I missed the chance to find out. December 13th. I woke up feeling seasick. And right as I opened my eyes I understood where that feeling came from. Namely, my little sister jumping energetically up and down on my mattress, her feet miraculously missing my body each time they touched the ground. "I want to bake something!" Those were her first words as she noticed my being awake, and I was tempted to simply throw the source of that high-pitched voice off the bed. However, my muscles protested at so much of the thought of moving, and when I caught a glance at my alarm clock and saw it was barely 7 a.m., I decided against any child throwing so early in the morning. Instead, I rolled over, closed my eyes again, and hoped that Lily would leave me alone once she understood I wouldn't act as her playmate. Of course, that plan failed miserably. Only a few seconds after the darkness had befallen my vision again, I felt a small body crash into mine, Lily apparently convinced that this was the next necessary step. "Please," I heard her whisper shout into my ear, and this time my muscles weren't all too declined to the throwing thought. But that would have also meant a crying sister on my floor, and that surely wouldn't help my sleep either. So I grumbled and got up, careful with every movement since Lily still was curled up on top of me. But as soon as I was standing with both feet on the ground, she started jumping again, this time in circles around me, whilst I made my way downstairs into the kitchen. How our parents didn't wake up at the laughter of this baking enthusiastic little monster was a mystery to me, though they probably had been the ones to send her my way in the first place. Thanks a lot. December 14th. On Sunday I decided to take a stroll through the still snow-white Christmas market on my own. I had spent so much time finding presents for my family with Chris's help that there was barely any time left to find a good present for my best friend. Though, to be completely honest, even now that I had the entire day for it, nothing seemed good enough. I wanted something that said, "Thank you for being my friend," and "You're a dog," both at the same time, but apparently that combination wasn't the usual Christmas seller's stock. After nearly 2 hours of picking things up that seemed almost perfect just to decide right before paying that they weren't any good after all, I decided to take a break, get some food and a nice cup of coffee, get my inspiration flowing again. So I entered the next cafe I could find, a rather small building that was brightened by the light of a little Christmas tree covered in golden decorations. I stood at the counter reading the menu of warm drinks with inhumane sweetness added to them when the chair fell. I turned my head quickly, but it was already too late. All my eyes witnessed was the surprised barista standing at the abandoned table and the back of Elea's head escaping from view into the crowd outside of the cafe window. I debated running after her, to be her friend in whatever situation caused her to leave so abruptly, but before I could decide to move, my eyes had already lost her completely. And as the girl behind the counter asked me what I wanted, I accepted my idle fate in the form of a vanilla latte. December 15th. As we were entering the classroom, Chris telling me a typical "my brothers are monsters" story, I heard a loud noise coming from the window. And sure enough, when I turned my head towards the sound, Elea was standing up, her expression somewhere between hurt and anger. "Don't act so innocent. I saw you at the coffee shop yesterday, talking like you were best friends. How could you do this?" Oh, the coffee shop. Elea had left because of Teal? What had he done? And who was you? I had stopped walking again, my gaze fixed upon Elea's friend, who apparently didn't care much about her anger, since he looked rather passive as he answered to her accusation, but Chris grabbed my arm and dragged me to our desk. Of course, I still couldn't take my eyes off the fighting classmates, even as Chris continued talking, and my best friend noticed my absence rather quickly, because not a minute later I was asked, "Are you even listening to me?" I snapped my head around, forcing my attention off of Elea with the intention to explain why I had to know what was going on, that I had been at the cafe and had seen Elea's shocked reaction, that I wanted to help her somehow. But, as always, Chris read my mind and cut me off before I could even start the explanation. "You know what? I actually don't care." And at my confused expression, my friend continued, "Go on, stare at her all you want. I won't bother you any longer." Of course I heard the bitterness in those words, and I knew I should have protested, but Chris had already turned away from me with a book that suddenly seemed very important, and the fight at the window was still going on. So I decided that there was nothing I could do about my friend's grumpiness right now, and instead followed the advice to stare at her all you want. I didn't really find out what exactly had happened at the cafe though, not before our teacher entered the room and ended all conversations. I did, however, feel Chris's presence like a lurking shadow next to me for the rest of the day. December 16th. I rang the bell again. Had Chris not heard the alarm clock this morning? I spied through the window, but there was no sign of life in the house. One more time. Nothing. I checked my phone to see if I had missed any messages that would explain why I was standing in front of an empty house. Nothing. However, the numbers in the corner of the screen told me that I'd have to leave soon if I wanted to get to school on time. So I looked through the window again and hoped to find Chris asleep on the sofa or something like that. But when I was only met with dark and empty rooms again, I sighed and turned around on the doorstep. Fine. I would find out what was going on soon enough. And I did, as soon as I entered the classroom. Chris was already there, sitting among our classmates with no care in the world, not even looking up when I passed the doorway. But that wasn't what confused me. What confused me was that the seat next to mine was empty. My best friend hadn't sat down at our usual table, but had some random free space in the front of the room. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't walk up to this new seat and have a confrontation in front of the entire class, but I also didn't want to walk to the back of the room all by myself without any protest about what was happening. The decision was made for me as our teacher entered and found me standing paralyzed in the middle of the room. "Take your seat, please," was all she said, but suddenly all eyes, except for Chris's, were on me, and so I obliged her words and found my place at the lonely table at the back. What had gotten into Chris? December 17th. Somehow my best friend had managed to avoid me all day long again, giving me not a single chance to find out what this was all about. So as soon as I got home, I took out my phone and sent a rather angry message. If Chris couldn't talk to me at school, we would have to do it this way. Or not. Half an hour had passed and there still was no answer, though I knew that Chris had gotten home before me, my way home being nearly twice as long. Immediately an image flashed through my mind of my not-so-friendly friend sitting on the big sofa in the living room, probably a cup of coffee in hand, and ignoring my messages on purpose, with an evil grin spreading from one corner of the mouth to the other. No, Chris wouldn't do that. Though, with the weird behavior from the past couple of days, I wasn't so sure anymore. What was going on? I sent another message, this time more concerned than mad, or at least that was what I hoped would shine through the words on the screen. I wasn't very good at texting. The pixelated letters somehow always seemed to work against me and twisted my thoughts around, until the person on the other end of the wireless connection couldn't tell my true intentions from the things I had actually written. But in this case it looked like I had no choice, and I hoped that Chris knew me well enough to understand the message I was sending. Apparently not, or at least not well enough to actually respond. I tried it one more time, this time with a very simple, "What's wrong?" But after another half an hour without any answer, I gave up, throwing my phone onto my bed in an attempt to delete my failed reconnection from my mind as I tried to focus on something else. My homework, the presents I had to wrap, a stupid show on Netflix. But in the end, I crawled under the blanket without any of those things finished and stared at the blank screen instead. Alright, that's it for this week's Christmas story. I know it's a little sad. Somehow all my stories kind of have this low in the middle. It will get better, I promise it will. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you always have a reason to smile. And I shall see you next week, which is Christmas. It's so crazy. Yeah, have a nice day. Bye!